Popular culture often divides humanity into two completely distinct categories: logical, analytical thinkers and the highly creative, right-brained artists. This narrative is deeply embedded in how we describe ourselves, but the physical reality of the human brain is far more interconnected than the myth suggests. The two hemispheres of the brain communicate through the corpus callosum, a massive biological bridge made of roughly 200 million nerve fibers that transfer data between the halves constantly. In the 1950s, Roger Sperry used meticulous animal experiments to demonstrate that these two hemispheres possess distinct specialized abilities when their connection is interrupted. Scientists realized that to understand the mechanics of human consciousness, they needed a way to observe what happens when this central data cable is permanently severed in a person. A medical breakthrough in the late 1950s provided that opportunity. Doctors were treating patients with rare, extreme cases of epilepsy that were resistant to all other forms of medicine. As a final attempt to stop electrical seizures from spreading across the brain, surgeons began a radical procedure to physically cut the corpus callosum. The operations were successful. The seizures stopped, and the patients miraculously appeared cognitively and emotionally normal, completely retaining their basic intelligence, their vivid memories, and their entire personalities. Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga hypothesized that such a drastic physical change must have side effects. They set out to design experiments to communicate with each half of a divided brain individually. The researchers used a custom visual apparatus to isolate information. By having a patient stare at a center point, the team could flash images to either the right or left visual field, reaching only one hemisphere at a time. When lights flashed on the right side, the information traveled to the left hemisphere, and the patient had no trouble stating aloud that they saw the flash. When lights flashed on the left side, the patient verbally denied seeing anything. Yet, when asked to point, their left hand accurately identified the bulbs that had just flashed. This test confirmed a major anatomical fact. The centers for speech and language are physically isolated in the left hemisphere of the brain. The right brain perceived the light perfectly, but because it lacked access to the speech center, it remained physically incapable of describing what it saw. The team then wanted to determine if the silent right brain could comprehend written language on its own. They designed the he-art test, flashing the full word so that it was split exactly at the patient's focal point. The left hemisphere processed the right side of the screen, so the patient verbally reports seeing only the word art. Simultaneously, when asked to point with their left hand to the word they saw, the patient points to H. Two distinct conscious realities were processing separate, conflicting information at the same time within a single person. To see if the right brain could reason without words, the researchers used tactile tests, asking patients to identify objects by touch inside a hidden bag. The right brain demonstrated a clear ability for abstract logic. If shown a picture of a cigarette, the patient's left hand could search through the bag and pull out an ashtray, matching the two concepts through reasoning alone. Emotional responses were also tested by flashing a provocative, nude photograph exclusively to the silent right hemisphere. The patient would blush and laugh, but because the speaking left brain hadn't seen the photo, it would invent a false reason for the laughter, blaming the funny machine instead. These observations led Michael Gazzaniga to a new understanding of how our consciousness is structured. He concluded that the brain houses two mental systems, each capable of its own independent thoughts, emotional reactions, and problem-solving strategies. While split-brain patients show us the extremes of isolation, the healthy brain operates through constant collaboration, moving far beyond the simple left versus right personality myth. Psychobiologist Jara Levy argues that hemispheric specialization is the engine of mental integration. These separate functions allow the brain to operate with a complexity that a uniform system could not achieve. When you read a book, your left hemisphere handles the technical processing, decoding syntax, translating phonetic sounds, and extracting literal meaning. Simultaneously, your right hemisphere constructs the visual imagery of the scene and processes the emotional weight and artistic style. The human brain functions as a single integrated unit that uses its specialized halves to construct a unified reality. The split brain experiments provided a rare window into the invisible coordination that makes our consciousness possible.